Hello and welcome to the League of Women Voters of Portland Video Voter Forum for the candidates for the Democratic nomination for election to the U.S. House of Representatives for Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. My name is Linda Mather. I'm a member of the Portland League and the moderator for this forum. The League is a nonpartisan organization dedicated to making democracy work. We believe democracy works best when voters are informed about the issues and engaged in their communities. Oregon has a closed primary system for the two major parties in the state. That means that in order to vote for the nominee of a major party, you need to be registered as a member of that party by April 30th. The 3rd Congressional District encompasses most of Portland east of the Willamette River, except for the central east side, and the rest of the county to the east. All candidates for this nomination were invited to participate in this voter forum. Those who accepted are Shahila Jayapal, Eddie Morales, Maxine Dexter, Nolan Bailinga, Ricardo Barahars, and Ricardo's going to correct me later, Rachel Lydia Rand, and Michael Jonas. Welcome to you all, and thank you for participating. We are grateful for the support from the Carol and Velma Sailing Foundation, the Weiss Foundation, the League of Women Voters of Portland Education Fund, and our media partner, Metro East Community Media. Under the voter forum's rules, which were agreed to by the candidates, each of the candidates will give a 2-minute opening, followed by questions that we have prepared, and each will also have a 2-minute closing. Each of the candidates will have up to a minute to answer each question. No rebuttals are allowed. The candidates have previously agreed in writing to comply with these time rules. To determine the order of candidate response, we are using the order dictated by the current random alphabets drawn by the Oregon Secretary of State before each election for this purpose. So, having said all that, we're now ready to turn to openings. And Maxine, if you would get us started with your opening, please.
Great. Thank you so much. Really, really grateful for the League and all the work you are doing to help us. My name is Maxine Dexter. I'm a mother, physician, and state representative for Portland. As a pulmonary and critical care physician, I've spent over 2 decades listening to patients, reviewing science, and finding solutions to improve people's lives. Caring for people is my life's work. I've seen firsthand how so many Oregonians are struggling to live healthy lives because of bad policy. I hear it every day, whether I'm speaking to a parent whose child has suffered an overdose, helping an unhoused person who doesn't have a place to recover after hospital discharge, or rushing into the ER to care for a pregnant woman who is suffering complications from her pregnancy. We can solve these problems if we have experts in the room, people who know the science and actually listen. But politicians often care more about scoring points than finding solutions. That's why I ran for the Oregon State Legislature, because I know we can do more to help people. I know I can do more, and I have. Since joining the State House, I led the charge to successfully secure the country's strongest abortion protections, passed historic investments in housing to address our homelessness crisis. We expanded drug treatment programs that will improve public safety and save lives, and closed loopholes in our firearm laws that put our kids at risk. I'm not naive about the task at hand. Right-wing extremism is doing a lot to undermine our democracy and our rights. But that's why we must elect a proven leader, someone who has shown that they know how to listen, lead, and get things done in a divided government. That's what I've done for decades as a physician, as a healthcare leader, caring for patients in CD3, as a mom determined to leave our children a better world, and as a representative. And that's what I'll do in Congress. Thank you so much. I look forward to our conversation today.
And thank you. And Ricardo, your 2-minute opening, please.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Ricardo Barajas. I've been a political activist and organizer since 2006. I was born and raised in East Los Angeles, California, to a single mother of four. Watching my mom raise us was definitely an eye-opener for me at my young age and now at my adult age. She worked countless hours as a home care worker. I've seen the struggles that she made for us, just to provide food and housing over our heads. I saw my mom do so much for her community as well, organizing and being part of what she can do. She inspired me, and that's what I'm running today. Myself, I graduated from the University of Oregon, have a degree in political science, and I mentioned being politically active for the last almost 2 decades. I am running because we've seen firsthand what's happening here in the state of Oregon in the 3rd Congressional District. Most of our people can't afford to buy the basic necessity of one income. Housing market has gone to skyrocket. Apartment housing is out of control. People are looking for solutions. We've seen Congress do nothing especially this term, do nothing in the last few sessions. Congress has an approval rating of 23%. And it shows you that we need new people to be elected to represent the true interests of people. We need people to go to Congress that want to do the work, not for the rich and famous. I'm tired of seeing politicians tell us how to live when they don't know what it is to struggle or live paycheck to paycheck. I'm running to represent my generation and represent the future generation moving forward and have practical solutions that would work for Oregonians and the rest of our country. Thank you for having me again.
And thank you. Next will be Rachel, and I just want to give everybody a heads up. Nolan, you'll be after Rachel. So, Rachel, your 2 minutes.
Hello, I'm Rachel Lydia Rand. Thanks for having me, Linda. I am a jazz musician and software engineer. I played trombone in the Navy for 7 years in the 90s. I played for Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. I walked on aircraft carriers playing music. I played improvised jazz for admirals several times a week and at the NATO building and the biggest Navy base in the world. After I got out of the Navy in 2000, I was trying to do music on my own, creative music. That didn't go anywhere. I was homeless for 3 years, living in cars, and then I was living on the streets of Seattle for a year. When I landed on the streets of Seattle, I came up with the idea of running for U.S. representative and possibly vice president. I knew I had a long way to go and that I would be a successful software engineer, and I got to work studying math of collision detection in 3D environments and software engineering by writing code on paper. I've always been about climate change here. I'm a lifelong bicyclist. Before the Navy, I was riding my bike 30 miles a day for 2 years for transportation, and I kept that up for most of my career. This is my 3rd time running for this office of U.S. Representative in District 3. I was suggesting that people work from home in the voters pamphlet in 2018 to make a carbon savings, and that was tested worldwide in the pandemic in 2020. And here I am with a more evolved platform this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nolan, your opening, please.
Perfect. I always, I'm a young person. I always say I'm 26 years old for anybody that wants to know my age. I think that Americans have been a little bit demoralized from the events that have taken place in the country. I've been a little bit demoralized, and I think that's kind of been the trend. And I appreciate y'all where you're inviting every single candidate to a forum like this, because there's been a lot of forums where that just hasn't really happened. They picked out, their favorites, and they've kind of said, we don't really care about anybody else. And I think that kind of stuff hurts democracy. So, I think that a big part of why I'm running is to try to reform the election system and make it to where democracy actually works in the Democratic Party, Republican Party, and everything. I'd say the biggest thing for me, though, because most of us agree on a lot of the issues. I'd say everybody here probably calls themselves a progressive in some kind of form. We need to lower the temperature of the hate and division in this country. I think that there's a lot of good people on both sides of the Democrats, the Republicans, Libertarians, wherever you name it. I came from Pendleton, Oregon, and in Pendleton, Oregon, I tried to set up a march for Black Lives Matter during the George Floyd protests, and there were a lot of good Republicans that actually came across the road and said, well, we want to learn about this and see what we can do. And as a result of all of that, the Umatilla County Commissioners ended up putting a proclamation out saying, well, we're going to commit the county to solving racial injustices. And you're talking about, right-wing Republican like Umatilla County. And I think that that's a testament to what we can do in this country. So as much as myself trying to lower the temperature, I challenge everybody here to try to get away from the extremist name calling and all that stuff. And let's humanize people and bring people together once again.
And thank you. And Shahila, excuse me, your opening statement.
Thank you so much, Linda, and thank you to the League for all you do. I'm Sushila Jayapal. I'm an immigrant, a lawyer, a mom, a community volunteer, and a former county commissioner. I was born in India and came to the US alone when I was 16. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but they used everything they had to send first me and then my sister here for an education. They're still in India. They're now 84 and 94 years old, and they've grown old alone without us nearby. They sacrificed not only financially, but personally to send us here. It's because of their sacrifice that I've been able to live in this district in Northeast Portland for the last 30 years and to raise my children here. I've practiced law, first as a litigator and then as general counsel for Adidas America. I've led on the boards of a number of nonprofit organizations like our local Planned Parenthood, and most recently, I served as a Multnomah County Commissioner. I carry their sacrifice with me every day, and I have spent all of my life here trying to pay it forward. I'm running for Congress because this is a pivotal time in this district and in the country. We have had MAGA Republicans threatening our democracy, taking away rights we've had for decades, like the right to abortion, pushing policies that would hurt everyday Americans, like cutting Social Security and Medicare, and trying to roll back the progress that we have made in recent years on the existential threat of climate change. And at the local level, we're facing crises of homelessness and addiction, and also the everyday challenges of people that are losing ground, worried about being able to afford housing and healthcare and childcare, worried about aging with dignity, and worried about responding to our changing climate. I'm running for Congress because I want to fight for the values and the people of the 3rd District, and because I believe that we can together meet these challenges with bold, ambitious policies that will create real change and that have to be implemented at the federal level. These include a Green New Deal for public housing, Medicare for all, just transition away from fossil fuels, and of course, a national right to abortion. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. And Eddie, your opening statement, please.
Well, thank you, Linda, and thank you to the League for all of your work to expand our democracy by getting people the information they need to participate. My name is Eddie Morales. I'm a 6-year city councilor here in the city of Gresham. I'm also a small business owner, and I serve as the vice president of a national nonprofit organization. My story really starts with my mother, who came to this country in the trunk of a car, and my 8 siblings who came to this country in the backseat of strangers' cars. And my mother made that sacrifice because she wanted something better for us. I was born in East Los Angeles, and when I was 6 years old, my mother fled another very dangerous situation. This time it was domestic violence. She brought us to Woodburn, Oregon, and there she brought us up by taking care of farm workers, kids, and feeding farm workers. My mother quickly learned that she could exchange childcare for us to have a place to live. I ended up growing up here in the district. I went to Martin Luther King Elementary School, Harriet Tubman Middle School, and graduated from Marshall High School. I got to also attend the University of Oregon. I was the first in my family to graduate high school and first to go to college. In college 25 years ago, I learned about community organizing, and I've dedicated the rest of my life to organizing across the country, in DC and here. I've lost 2 brothers to gun violence, and I've lost a sister to opioid addiction 4 years ago. My mother had to go back to Mexico when I was in college to be with my dying grandmother. The issues that I lived through, like housing insecurity, a broken immigration system, gun violence, and addiction and mental health, are the things that I've been working on our city council and have made improvements. I want to continue to address these issues at the federal level so that we can address them at scale. Again, my 25 years of organizing experience, as well as my lived experience, really sets me apart from everyone else who's running in this race. And I want to do right by our Congress, by our district.
Okay, thank you. And Michael.
First of all, thank you so much for having me, and happy Earth Day to everybody. Before kids called Taylor Swift and Beyonce mother, there was Mother Earth. We need to protect the Earth and protect, of course, women's rights and voting rights. Earth Day should be every day. And I know that your organization is doing all kinds of things, not just voting rights. You're working on gun control, working on environmental measures as well. Those are all very important. Listen, when we run for office, we are applying for a job. This particular office it has not been open since 1996. And we have to ask this question of who knows the issues, but also who knows the industries and who has worked in the community with small business, big business, nonprofits, everyday people. I think I'm that person. I not only had to work from a very young age, we lost our house when I was 12 years old, and I started working in restaurants at about 15, but I ended up becoming a lawyer and dedicating my life, both in law school and now, to public interest law. My law firm now, Rational Unicorn Legal Services, for the past 7 years, we've done community business law for everyone in the community. And so what that means is we have met people where they are. We've offered pay-as-you-go services. We have embraced women and BIPOC business owners and met them where they are and said, what's your passion? Do you want to open a nonprofit? Do you want to create art? Do you want to, sell food? Whatever it may be, we've met them where they're at and worked with them. And so I have forged community partnerships with women accelerator programs, with all kinds of startup groups, with food and beverage ecosystems. I have worked with all sorts of people that are actually here working in the district. During the pandemic, of course, it was awful for all kinds of folks. I was working 60 to 70 hours a week on the ground doing that work. I think I'm out of time. Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for watching for the time. And here, as we go to time, you're going to get all these great questions that you have to answer in 1 minute. So let's get started and see where we go. Rachel, we'll start with you. And the question is, what role do you believe Congress should play in addressing income inequality in America?
So income inequality here, we're seeing the tech industry, people like myself, making people unemployed, where we're making systems more efficient. I predict we're gonna start eliminating a lot of management positions here, which is going to create a whole different economy. I'm also suggesting that oil is a substance as well as a fuel, and it's a finite substance. We pave our roads and shingle our houses with it. I see us headed into a completely different economy here, and just simply saying that we're addressing income inequality is not a big enough picture of what we're really getting into here in the future.
Thank you. And Ricardo, income inequality.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think we've seen in the last 4 years as more people are trying to recover from COVID, the top 1% have just gotten more rich and powerful. Where back 5-10 years ago, $50,000 was a lot of money to get you an apartment. Now it's not anymore. Or now we have to survive by making over $100,000 to just basically have for the necessities. We do need to address income inequalities, and that goes through, that can mean many things. It could mean making sure we do have proper housing, making sure we bring down the cost of the housing to make everyone have an affordable house the next 2-3 years, combat inflation, but also make sure that we cap everything as best as we can. We need to learn from our mistakes, be prepared for the future, and be proactive. But I think the middle class has been hit the hardest. we need to be able to rely on the middle class to revive itself and then move forward stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. Shahila, your take on Congress's role?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's unacceptable that we live in a country where one man can own a $500 million yacht and where tens of thousands of families sleep in tents on the streets. So absolutely, Congress has a role to play in addressing income inequality. And there are several facets of that. We have to make sure people have a good living wage job and income. That means, I think, a stronger labor movement, really focusing on the right to organize, creating pathways to good jobs, education. And then on the other side of the equation, we have to make sure that all of the things that people need in their lives are affordable. So that means affordable housing. That means affordable childcare. It means affordable elder care so that people can have jobs, because if we can't take care of our kids and our elders, we can't work. And it also means that everybody has to pay their fair share. Part of what's creating income inequality is a tax system that's incredibly unfair, that has really, really wealthy people and large corporations paying far less in taxes than everyday Americans.
Thank you. And Michael, your response?
Did Eddie go? Oh. I wasn't sure if we were going in order. Was Eddie?
Well, I'm trying to mix up the order.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm so
So
sorry.
you all have a different piece of the pie.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, I'll go
That's
ahead.
okay.
So, I agree with Sushila. I think untethering corporate greed from moral imperatives. We have healthcare tied to corporate greed, but we also have to look at wages. Our minimum wage is $7.25 federally, and we're in 2024. We had the Lilly Ledbetter Act, but women still make 63 to 84 cents per dollar that men make. There's also community college. I think community college should be free. There also needs to be tons of vocational programs for women and mothers that look at having daycare and flexible options on hours. So there's a wide variety of things we can do for this.
And Eddie, your response, please.
Yeah, Linda, I grew up poor, and I talked a little bit about how unstabling that was. I think, we need good paying jobs with benefits, and I think people need the ability to retire with dignity. And so one of the starts we have to do is make sure that we're creating good paying jobs. We also need to drive the costs down. I think we can do that through student loan forgiveness, making sure we have affordable housing for people, and that we work with the Treasury around the way that it handles inflation. And then thirdly, I would say that we need to tax billionaires and large corporations who are not paying their fair share. All of the things that we want in this country and need in this country could be paid for if people paid their fair share.
Thank you. And Maxine?
Thank you so much. As somebody who grew up in a working class family and had economic mobility as a result of a labor job, I absolutely believe we have to expand the opportunities for labor unions to do what they do best, and that's expand the middle class. That also includes the rationale that everyone needs to have economic mobility. We need affordable housing. We've said a lot of these things, and I agree with my colleagues here. We need to tax the rich, close corporate loopholes. We need affordable housing. We need robust public school systems. We absolutely need career training and education, as well as junior college, to be free. And we need childcare, and we need to have an opportunity for everyone to get to their jobs in 10-minute walkable, resilient communities or public transportation. Really appreciate that.
And Nolan.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody says tax the rich, and I think that's a viable thing, but most people don't know, because those talking points just kind of allow the rich to get richer. What the rich do, if you look at the tax codes and how they get around paying the taxes, is they borrow off of their shares. For anybody that doesn't know, we've actually got to make it so we can tax what they're doing. They don't gain income like most people. So it's really about how they're getting their income and how can we tax that income that we're getting. Because from what I see with the talking points is the rich just keep getting richer and the poor just keep getting poorer. And I'll tell you what, is all the middle class folks that I know with inflation, they're able to afford less and less and less and less and less. And like for me and my generation of the young folks, we're upset because we'll never be able to afford a house. We're going to have to rent for the rest of our lives unless we change how things are happening. So I think we got to go deeper than just the talking points and start getting into how we're going to change the tax codes themselves.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Let's try another of those nice questions that take 60 seconds. What changes, if any, would you support in congressional action on voting rights? Eddie, would you get us started on that?
Right. Yeah, Linda, thank you again for the question. I've been working on expanding democracy, re-engaging people in the process, whether it was in Arizona on, our newly immigrant community, to restoring voting rights for 1.5 million people in Florida, or working with Stacey Abrams to ensure that communities that have historically been left out are participating. That's why she's chosen to endorse me in this campaign. I think the first thing we need to do is implement the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and restore the act to its initial intent. Has been clawed back to allow for particularly communities that have historically been disenfranchised to continue to be disenfranchised. I think we need to go to vote by mail, automatic registration in this country, and make it accessible for anyone to be able to participate in the political process. So,
thank you. Ricardo, your response, please.
Thank you. I think we will probably all agree and mimic the same answer. Here in Oregon, when I moved here, we have this thing called mail-in ballots. It's been working great for our state. There's been very minimum to zero issues, and there's no fraud, despite what many people say. I would like to expand that nationally. Of course, make registration for all adults once we turn 18, and also, introduce legislation to make Election Day a federal holiday. I also agree with would like to implement same-day registration at the ballot. I think if we partner up with our local and state officials, there should be no real main issues with registration, with voting, and making it accessible for everyone to vote. The right to vote is our basic fundamental right, and we need to protect it and empower it across the country. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rachel.
Yes, voting rights. I mean, I support what's outlined in the Constitution about it. I favor mail-in ballots, physical people tied to physical addresses, tied to mail people physically getting in contact with them. I think it makes more sense than everyone flocking to a polling place on one day. I mean, that was the way things were. That was physical too. It's a hard issue. I personally think we should inspire and the younger generations to really be active in voting, because they're inheriting a different world here, and we need to see them step up and make their voice heard here.
Thank you. Shahila?
Thank you. Yeah, like the right to vote is essential to everything else we want to work on, whether that's shared prosperity, which we talked about in the last question, or addressing climate change, or any of the big things on our agenda. I think, like many of the others on the screen, I absolutely believe that we should extend some of the leadership that Oregon has shown to the rest of the country. So automatic voter registration, right to vote by mail, absolutely need to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and reverse the clawbacks that the Supreme Court has made to monitoring states that have historically disenfranchised people of color. And then I think there are other narrower things that we should and can do. For example, extending the right to vote to felons. There's no reason why felons who are paying the price for their crimes should be deprived of the right to vote. And that provision was, again, like so many things that hurt folks of color, has its roots in slavery and in discrimination. So lots of things that we can do. Thanks.
Thank you. And Nolan?
Thank you. Look, I think most people in this country, left and right, have totally lost faith in our elections, which is dangerous for democracy in itself. Like, whether you're right wing or left wing, I think we need to restore the trust in the elections as a whole. Obviously, we all agree on things like mail-in ballots and whatnot. But I want to point out that in the Democratic Party, for us too, is if you remember in 2016, when a whole bunch of people voted for Bernie Sanders and for the first state of the primary, Bernie won the popular vote, yet Hillary Clinton got all the super delegates, and Bernie ended up losing the state. And so that's not really a popular vote or my vote mattering in a primary. I think there's a lot more to be done than just mail-in ballots. We've got to look at how can we make the entire election process as a whole fairer. And so that comes with campaign finance reform and ensuring that everybody can vote and a whole bunch of things. It's just trying to make it more fair.
And Michael.
A lot of the answers were said, but so the Supreme Court case in Shelby, they actually gutted a lot of the Voting Rights Act from 1965 rules. And so passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act would help give a pre-clearance for some of these states like Georgia, who made giving a water bottle to people in line or snacks illegal. But so there's the making voting accessible. There's also looking at voter ID laws, for example. There are voters who end up showing up thinking they can vote, and they're told to go back home, that they're not able to vote. So promoting transparent, fair election processes. We also need to look at gerrymandering. I don't think anybody mentioned that, but I agree with most of the things that our colleagues mentioned. And what Nolan, I think, is mentioning is, if we can order food on our phone, why can't we potentially vote in a secure way electronically, or finding ways to modernize might actually get more of our youth involved in the election processes.
And thank you. And Maxine.
Thank you. As a state lawmaker, I absolutely believe in the fundamental power of democracy and the imperative of safeguarding it for everyone's opportunity. We must have free and fair elections. What we've done at the state level, passed legislation to expand access to the ballot, ensuring postmarked ballots are counted, allowing extra time for community members to vote. We made the first campaign finance reform law happen this last session. It's the first since 1975, so that Oregonians have more opportunity to lean in, close loopholes that allow politicians to conceal their income sources. We need to do more at the congressional level, including ending Citizens United, enacting For the People Act to limit the influence of money in policymaking, passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. A lot has been said. I also believe we should end the Electoral College. It disproportionately gives voice to some areas over others, and absolutely extending our vote by mail system.
Thank you. Just for a second, we need a break. You are watching the video of the Voter Forum of the League of Women Voters of Portland, or you're listening to our podcast, and it's on the Congressional District 3. Let us turn to another of these easy questions. What, if any, weight should voters give the number of a candidate's financial supporters, the identities of their donors, and the amount of their average contributions? All right, so it's asking, should we pay attention to the candidate's financial supporters, identity of the donors, and the amount of their average contributions? Rachel, would you start us off, please?
Sure. I mean, it's outlined in the FEC rules. I reported the FEC in 2018 and possibly 2020. I'm sure I did. I haven't this election. I haven't passed the threshold yet, actually. But it's something to look at. I suppose that's interesting information. I tried to. I have an extensive platform on my website at dottrombone.com/politics. And I'm all about the platform. I'm actually in the shoes of the position, actually in the executive level, which I've been working up towards for 20 years. This climate change thing is serious, in my opinion, and I think we should get to work on it.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah, I think we have some of the most transparent election contribution laws here in the state of Oregon, where you get to see who's giving and how much has been given to each candidate. And I think we could do more at the federal level, particularly around, dark money and that tends to come in and try to win over elections. So yeah, I do think it's important that voters know the average contribution of someone who is funding our campaigns and outside entities that are spending money in our elections. And yeah, I think it's the more transparency that we have, I think the better, to Nolan's point about just regaining the trust of voters in our democracy, in our elections. So.
And Michael.
Well, I don't believe that corporations are people. And so I think it is the people's house. So we surely should know if corporations have funded the people who are trying to represent the people's house. I'm big on transparency. I'm also big on looking at the barrier to entry. You all have had all of us, which is great, but as many of the candidates on this call have indicated, we've often been seen as not viable based on endorsements or based on money raised. So if I'm a community business attorney that was chosen as the Small Business Champion of the Year, and I'm involved in the community on several nonprofit boards, if I'm not seen as viable, what about a single mother who has 4 kids? What about a nurse or a teacher? What about people who are everyday people? So when we have this sort of political system that favors having connections to establishments, which then bring in political fundraising dollars, we're essentially just continuing the thing that we just keep on seeing and seeing. And not that the people who are running are not great, they are public servants, but we need to be a little more intentional on who is involved and how they're funded.
And Shahila?
Yeah, I mean, this relates to the previous question, right? We talked about the role of money in politics, and I do think that the way money plays itself out in politics today is corrosive. I don't think corporations are people. I don't think they should be able to participate in elections, and I have pledged not to take any corporate PAC money. I don't think people should be able to make unlimited contributions to campaigns. Oregon had that system for a very long time, and it still exists federally as well. Even though we've got limits on individual contributions to campaigns, there are no limits on the amount that people can contribute to independent expenditures that come in on behalf of a candidate. And nobody should be able to contribute $500,000 or $1 million in order to select the candidate of their choice. Voters should do that. So I do think it matters. I'm proud of the breadth of my contributions, the number of them, the proportion that comes from Oregon, and the number of small dollar donors. I think all of those are important, both to showing where our support comes from and to how we'll govern if elected.
And Maxine.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sunlight, as Justice Brandeis said, is one of the most powerful disinfectants, and so transparency is foundational. I also agree that corporations are not people. They don't deserve First Amendment rights. I believe the ultimate goal should be publicly funded campaigns, that really we should have a system that's fully transparent and owned by the people. Ending Citizens United is just one step towards that. We absolutely should be moving without question towards that. But in the meantime, how many donors you have, the size of the donations, all those things are really important for people to understand. I also think it's up to the voters to be able to find that readily. Those are pieces of information that aren't necessarily transparent to everyone, even though you can find it. It's not something that we all understand. So civics education, understanding the impact of that is also important.
And Nolan.
Thank you. I wanted to mention there's something Michael said the other night that I really liked, and it was about how, I'm paraphrasing, but it's about how Congress is supposed to be like normal people, right? Amongst normal people. You're talking about like the mother and whatnot. But we all know, and I know we're modest about it as people running for office, but we all know that money dominates all the elections, that whoever has their name in front of the most people wins almost no matter what when it comes to primaries. And so taking money out of politics has to be a #1 priority out of anything. Nothing will get done. What we see is a lot of folks that say they're going to do one thing, they get in office, and they get cold feet once they get in the office. They never vote for those things. And so, and then you also have this dynamic where people that have super PACs, corporations, the 501(c)s, all of it, to where they are voting for things they might not even believe in because now they're obligated for the money that they've taken from these particular groups. And it holds them on a string, essentially. They're like paid actors. And so I think we've got to remove it completely if we want to do things like save the climate and whatnot.
Thank you. And Ricardo.
And, yeah, thank you. I think I can piggyback off of Nolan. I think when AOC ran in 2018, she stated we need ordinary people to run for ordinary people. And it's just sad that in today's society or today's elections, money does dominate. With all respect to Sheila and Dr. Maxine, they have the advantage over us. Elections should be about ideas and what we want to do moving forward. Money doesn't have to be 100% part of the whole picture. We have people across the country who are running, trying to make the proper change, trying to do the right thing, but without the money coming in because of dark money or super PACs or all those together factors. There's great people who are losing elections because of the money. So I think we definitely need to look at who's donating, how much they're donating, and their frequency, because again, it should be about the ideas, not about the money. Thank you.
And thank you all for your answers to your questions. We turn now to the closing statements, and we'll start with Maxine for your 2-minute closing, please. You're muted, Maxine.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. I really appreciate it.
Technology works sometimes. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for hosting this conversation. I'm confident in my unique ability to bring to this office my personal experience and professional expertise to representing the people of Congressional District 3. My campaign is built on a career, as I mentioned at the beginning, of caring for people, listening to them, making sure our community has all the opportunities that it can to thrive. And truly having the investment of our community depends on equitable opportunity, which we are so far from at this point. My proven skills in consensus building and pragmatic problem solving lead to effective, lasting policy change. I understand how to build that policy change brick by brick to make sure it's durable. I want to leave the country better than I found it. And I absolutely believe that my opportunity as a working class child to be here with you today should be something that every single person should have an opportunity to achieve in our democracy. I'm the only candidate who's been a lawmaker and who has proven that I can get hard things done by working collaboratively with others in a divided and highly politicized body. This is an important, influential seat in Congress due to its strong Democratic voters. My question to the voters ultimately is, when you go to the ballot, do you want to vote for someone that you hope will be a good lawmaker or someone that you know will be effective? Congress isn't working and it needs to urgently. I can get the job done, and that's why I'm endorsed by former governors, former and current speakers of the House, Treasurer Tobias Reed, and over 20 legislators. I'm also supported by community leaders like Andy Mendenhall from Central City Concern, local leaders serving the people of our community, the Oregonian, the National Endowment for or Organization for Women, and Everytown for Gun Safety. I really, as well as unions, community leaders, healthcare groups, et cetera. I want you to send me to Congress and know that you have a partner in this work who will hit the ground running and will get this done so that we can make a better place for everyone here in Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nolan, your closing statement?
Awesome. I think it's important to say that the truth is nobody knows everything. I don't know everything there is to be, but I'm always willing to go and learn whatever there is. I'm always willing to talk to anybody that's out there. I'm not confined by anything other than what I would seek is the truth. And what I want to do is help unite people, right? Left wing, whatnot. And I know that people are triggered by words a lot of the time, and it turns people off from good ideas. So we've got to really go and connect to people and talk to folks and see if we can bring stuff to the table. There's a lot of young people that are passionate and they want to be part of politics. And I think that being there, I can help inspire them a little bit to be part of it and to have their voices heard too. So my goal is to help other folks be the catalyst for change, to lift people up. And so ultimately, Americans don't really feel free today. It feels like you're stuck in your 9 to 5 and you can't afford rent. You can't afford to go get just a simple meal at McDonald's anymore or whatnot. So we also got to free Americans. What kind of land of the free is it when, you have no freedom, right? You incarcerate. I think this just changed, but we're incarcerating more people than any country in the history of the world, which you'd think is crazy for the land of the free. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Okay, thank you. And Shahila, your closing statement, please.
Thank you so much. I think we're all running for this seat because we believe that we've got big challenges. I believe we also have big solutions, and we have to be bold and ambitious in pushing for those solutions. Half measures have not worked for the last decades, and they're not going to work now. I have shown that I will push for those solutions, that I'll stand true to my values, even in difficult political circumstances. And I have proven that I can build a coalition that can get big things done. On a range of issues, I am clear. On healthcare, I am an unabashed supporter of Medicare for All, which will provide universal single-payer healthcare. We need to change our broken healthcare system, not tinker at the edges. On climate, my stance on moving away from fossil fuels and my leadership on clean air has earned me the endorsement of every environmental organization that has endorsed in this race, from Sierra Club to Food and Water Watch. On civil rights, I've been out front on abortion, one of the foremost issues for D3 voters. I served on the Planned Parenthood board when we became the first Planned Parenthood clinic in the country to offer medication-assisted abortion, and I have publicly shared my own abortion story to advocate for the right to choose as an essential freedom. And in one of the most prominent foreign policy issues of our time, I have again been out front. I have clearly, consistently, and for some time called for a ceasefire in Gaza, recognizing that the path the Netanyahu government is on will not lead to peace, safety, or security. And finally, I have the broadest and most diverse coalition of support, not only endorsed by national leaders like Senator Bernie Sanders, unions like AFSCME, the building trades, and most recently, the United Auto Workers, but most importantly, by community leaders across the district, people who've worked with me throughout my 30 years here, know my leadership, and know that I deliver. Thank you.
Thank you. And Eddie, your response, please.
Well, thanks for, again, hosting this forum, and thanks to the other candidates for being on here. It's great to have all 7 of us on here. I shared a little bit about my personal upbringing. I hope that shows you what my motivation is and the kind of character and the person that I am, and that you can trust why I do the work that I do. I have the broadest coalition of support behind me out of anybody here, from having the most labor endorsements than anybody who's running, from the Oregon Education Association to our local firefighters, to our letter carriers, our mail handlers, our airline pilots and flight attendants, and our sheet, metal, air, rail, and transportation workers. This coalition is broad. I also have the realtors behind me as well. And so I think that really shows that I can bring people together to work on getting things done. I've been at this for about 25 years, organizing across the country in Washington, D.C. on things like the DREAM Act, as well as the Affordable Care Act, on restoring voting rights for formerly incarcerated citizens, to helping pass DACA. Here in my own city, I've built over 400 affordable housing units, multi-generational, so that families can live together. I've also helped to bring down gun violence and crime, and I have things that I can actually point to that I've done. And so, I think that I will go to Congress and serve our community, and I will bring our community with us when decisions about us are being made. It's the way I've operated. It's the way that I will continue to operate. And I'm going to make sure that when people talk about gun violence or housing, that they are hearing from people who have experienced those, like myself, firsthand. And so help me get there, and vote for Eddie Morales.
Thank you. And Rachel, your closing comment?
Yes, thank you, Linda. There are a lot of strong candidates in this race with lots of experience, and we've been interviewing this week, and it's been most impressive. Of course, I'm all about climate change here. I'm a software engineer. It's the study of logic, and climate change has been my thing for 30 years here. I want to get elected as U.S. representative here, and then rise to the vice presidency in 2028. And if I lose the election, I'm going to be running for president or vice president the next day. I started this campaign as a presidential campaign. I believe that my ideas on how to address climate change are correct. Human activity causes climate change. If we are making our economy stronger, we're likely going to be buying cars, and even if they're electric, it takes industrial heat to make cars, and all the mining and everything that goes into it, our topsoil and nitrogen runoff, which I mentioned in the interview with Earl Blumenauer in 2018. Earl's been a huge proponent of bicycles and the electric MAX trains in the city, and those are going to be vital to our future. The wind turbines and the solar panels are also vital to our future, but I don't think we're going to be creating a society like we have now for 10 billion people that are projected in by the end of the century. I'm suggesting that Generation Z have one child to every 2 women for the next 40 years. If they do that worldwide, we'll get our population down to 2 billion by 2099. And I think that's where we need to be to tackle climate change and the inevitable end of oil, which we pave our roads with. Thanks for allowing me to participate.
Okay, and Ricardo?
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone else who's joined. I think this is a great group of candidates who really have a vision for Oregon 3rd District and our country. But I want to touch on something. Besides big issues, I want to focus on Portland. I think we need to focus heavily on the homeless crisis, the drug issues, and bring back Portland what it used to be, the city of roses. People don't go to downtown to Portland because they're scared, they're afraid. Small businesses are suffering. I want to make sure, as I tackle those big issues, I want to make sure we tackle our local issues as well. Bring the revenue, bring the people back, make Portland what it used to be, this bright city in the mountains. So I want to address that and make that one of my core issues. That Portland, I will not forget you, because Portland, you're important to me. As far as issues, we all have great issues. I feel I'm one of the candidates who have realistic issues. I will not go to Congress lying to the American people. I will be realistic. I will be cordial and see what can be done. Some candidates want to go to Congress and make these false promises. Realistically speaking, with the broken Congress and a low approval rating of 23%, that's not likely to be done. We need, again, new people, not just in this district, across the country, to really get in Congress and make change. So my pitch to the voters: do you want the same old picture where nothing gets done and it's gridlock the next 2 years? Or you want someone new and fresh that are ready to tackle the issues, ready to talk across the aisle and get the job done? And lastly, just remember, we need to also look for someone who wants to go to Congress, but also wants to do the work done in term limits. I'm the only candidate who made it. I'm the only candidate who has made it vocal that I've already served 4 terms, retired, and let the next generation lead us. I want to thank everyone for your time and have a good evening.
And Michael, your closing statement, please.
First of all, it's very clear we're all very progressive. We all want the same things. The difference is not just who knows the issues, it's who knows the industries in this district, who can work with the art community, the music community, farmers, food ecosystems. There's a massive industry of small businesses. Of the people on this call, I have the most experience in community-oriented economic development. I have helped thousands of people open small businesses and nonprofits and survive and thrive before, during, and after a pandemic. I was the guy working 60 to 70 hours a week on the ground doing that work. And then I also talked about earlier, this is a job application. So it's not just about the issues and what I call surface level progressivism, right? It's who is a systems thinker. So not only do I have a law degree, I have an executive MBA, I have experience, I built my entire law firm from scratch. I have experience getting into systems and being invited to the table and then saying, this is not how we're doing it. We're going to do it differently this time. I agree that there's a lot of support for the other candidates. I'm not independently wealthy. I don't have a sister in Congress. I'm not coming off of a political role. But what I do have is I have the endorsements from community leaders who actually live and work in our district. Some of those are the executive director of Pride Northwest, who organizes the whole Pride Parade, the executive director of Music Portland and the Live Events Coalition, the executive director of the Black Business Chamber. So people who are actually here, living, working in the industry, those are the people who have seen me on the ground and have decided to endorse me instead of the other candidates. And here's the other thing, there's 2 lawyers on this call. Sushila has been a great public servant. I'm 39. I have dedicated my life to community business law. I have taken the time to do public interest work. I know that she's done that recently, but I think years ago, there was a lot of work done that was not tied to community investments. So I think that there's a clear distinction if folks are wondering based on having 2 lawyers.
And you're going to be stopping. Thank you, Michael. Okay. My thanks to all of you for cooperating and for, in fact, running. As you well know, it's not easy to do that. So it speaks well of each of you as well as of the Portland area. This concludes today's voter forum with the participating candidates for the Democratic nomination for the U.S. House of Representatives for Oregon's 3rd District. Audience members, please share this forum recording and podcast with your friends and families. We all need to be informed voters. If you are registered to vote by April 30th, you should receive your ballot by May 6th. As with all Oregon elections, almost all voters will participate by mailing in their ballots, although in-person voting is also available. Check your county voters pamphlet online or when the paper copy arrives by mail at your household. To be counted, ballots must be postmarked by Tuesday, May 21st at 8 p.m. You can also find an official ballot Dropbox location near you by checking www.vote411.org or in the county voters pamphlet. The League of Women Voters is a membership organization and therefore welcomes your support. We hope this forum was meaningful to you. You can find more information at lwvpdx.org. This is Linda Mather for the League of Women Voters of Portland. Thank you for watching and listening and for being an informed voter. And please remember to vote. Thank you.